The ocean is the silent witness to history's darkest riddles. But in June of 1947, that silence was broken by a terrifying transmission drifting from the Malacca Strait. A Dutch freighter, the S.S. Ourang Medan, sent a final message that chilled the blood of those who heard it. All officers, including the captain, are dead. I die. When rescuers finally boarded the drifting vessel, they stepped into a waking nightmare. There was no damage to the hull, no signs of piracy, no blood, just a crew frozen in place, their bodies twisted in unnatural contortions, mouths wide open, staring up at the sun with eyes full of primal fear. They weren't killed by weapons. They were killed by something else, something invisible. What did the crew of the Ourang Medan see in their final moments? It began as a routine passage through one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, the Malacca Strait. A narrow stretch of water between Sumatra and Malaysia was calm on that fateful day. Several ships were navigating the area, including the American merchant vessel, the Silver Star. Suddenly, the radio chatter of the strait was pierced by a frantic S.O.S. It wasn't a standard distress call. It was a chaotic burst of Morse code coming from a Dutch freighter identified as the S.S. Ourang Medan. The operator on the Silver Star listened in horror as the message was decoded. It read, "S.O.S. We float. All officers, including the captain, dead in chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole crew dead." Then, a series of unintelligible dots and dashes followed, a sign of panic or fading consciousness. Finally, the transmission ended with two clear words, tapped out with chilling finality. I die. Then, silence. The captain of the Silver Star wasted no time. He triangulated the signal and turned his ship around. Hours later, they spotted the Ourang Medan on the horizon. The ship appeared to be in perfect condition. There was no smoke, no hull damage, and the sea was tranquil. But there was no movement on deck, no gulls flying overhead, just a massive steel ghost drifting in the current. The Silver Star signaled with lights and whistles, but the Dutch ship remained unresponsive. A boarding party was assembled. As the small boat approached the silent freighter, the sailors reported a strange drop in temperature, despite the tropical heat of the afternoon. They climbed the ladder and stepped onto the main deck. The silence was heavier than the humid air. And then, they saw them. Sprawled across the iron deck were the bodies of the Dutch crew. They were lying on their backs, their faces frozen in grotesque masks of agony. Their eyes were wide open, staring at the sun, and their arms were outstretched, as if fending off an attacker that had no physical form. Even the ship's dog was found dead, frozen mid-snarl, baring its teeth at an invisible enemy. The boarding party moved deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing in the tomb-like corridors. On the bridge, they found the captain dead where he stood. In the chart room, the officers were huddled together, lifeless. And in the radio room, the operator was found slumped over his key, his finger still resting on the button that sent the final message. The boarding party from the Silver Star attempted to make sense of the carnage, but the scene defied logic. There were no bullet holes, no knife wounds, and no signs of a struggle. The ship's cargo was intact. It wasn't a robbery. What troubled the sailors most was the condition of the bodies. They were decaying faster than they should have been, yet they were stiff, as if rigor mortis had set in instantly at the moment of death. And despite the tropical sun beating down on the steel hull, the interior of the ship felt unnaturally cold. Deep in the bowels of the vessel, in the boiler room, the temperature dropped so low that the rescue team could see their own breath. It was a chilling anomaly for a ship that had been steaming full ahead just hours before. The captain of the Silver Star decided that the Ourang Medan could be salvaged. He ordered his men to attach a tow line to the ghost ship. They were preparing to haul it to the nearest port for an official investigation. But the ocean had other plans. Just as the tow line was being secured, a wisp of dark smoke began to curl up from hold number 4. At first it was subtle, but within seconds it turned into a billowing cloud of black fumes. The smell of burning sulfur filled the air. The rescue team didn't wait to find the source. Panic set in. They scrambled back down the ladders and into their lifeboat, cutting the ropes and rowing frantically away from the Dutch freighter. They made it to a safe distance just in time. With a deafening roar, the SS Ourang Medan erupted. An explosion deep within the cargo hold lifted the massive ship out of the water. The steel buckled and tore apart like paper. A fireball consumed the bridge where the dead captain lay. Moments later, the vessel broke in two. It hissed as the water rushed in, dragging the evidence, the bodies, and the terrifying truth down into the dark abyss of the Malacca Strait. The Silver Star was left alone on the empty sea. The mystery had been swallowed whole. The sea swallowed the evidence, but it couldn't drown the questions. When investigators tried to look up the S.S. Ourang Medan in the official maritime records, they hit a wall. The ship wasn't in Lloyd's Register of Shipping. It wasn't in the Dictionary of Disasters at Sea. Officially, the ship never existed. This absence of records led to a dark theory. The Ourang Medan was a ghost runner, a vessel operating off the books to smuggle illicit cargo, and considering the year, 1947, the nature of that cargo was likely terrifying. World War II had just ended. The Pacific was littered with the remnants of war. Historians and theorists speculate that the Dutch freighter was carrying a deadly payload from Unit 731, the infamous Japanese covert biological and chemical warfare research unit. The theory suggests the ship was smuggling unstable chemicals, specifically potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin, destined for the United States or a black market buyer. This explains the unexplained. If seawater entered the hold and reacted with the chemicals, it would release toxic gases. Cyanide gas is invisible and odorless until it's too late. It causes immediate asphyxiation, seizing the muscles and freezing the victim in a state of terror. The crew wouldn't have had time to bleed. They would have died gasping for air that was suddenly poison. It also explains the unearthly cold reported by the boarding party, as certain chemical reactions absorb heat rapidly. And finally, the nitroglycerin explains the end. As the chemicals became unstable in the tropical heat, the mixture turned into a ticking time bomb, resulting in the catastrophic explosion that erased the ship from history. But for many, the chemical theory is too clean. It explains the death, but does it explain the fear? Why point to the sky? Why did the dog snarl at empty space? There is another detail often overlooked. 1947 was not just any year. It was the year the world looked up. It was the year of Roswell. The year Kenneth Arnold saw flying saucers over Mount Rainier. The Malacca Strait itself has a long history of unexplained aerial phenomena. Sailors in that region have reported strange lights maneuvering under the water and shooting into the heavens for centuries. Could the crew of the Ourang Medan have encountered something not of this world? Something that triggered a primal, biological override in their brains? If we step back from the extraterrestrial, the ocean offers one final, terrifying possibility: infrasound. The sea is capable of producing low-frequency sound waves, often caused by storms or seismic shifts deep underwater. These frequencies are below the range of human hearing, but not below the range of human feeling. Infrasound strikes the body directly. It vibrates the eyeballs, causing visual hallucinations. It resonates in the chest, creating an overwhelming, irrational sense of dread and impending doom. It is known as the fear frequency. Imagine the crew, sailing on a calm sea, suddenly hit by a silent wave of sound rising from the abyss. They start seeing shadows that aren't there. Panic spreads like a virus. Their hearts race, their minds snap. They die of cardiac arrest, induced by sheer terror, pointing at demons created by their own vibrating eyes. We may never know the truth. The SS Ourang Medan took its secrets to the bottom of the Malacca Strait, leaving behind only a terrified whisper on a radio frequency. Whether it was a chemical accident born from the sins of war, a mass hallucination triggered by the sea itself, or an encounter with the unknown, the result remains the same. The ocean is a vast library of unanswered questions, and sometimes it demands silence. For now, the story of the death ship remains just another ghost signal, fading into the static, drifting endlessly into the vanished point.